So we're back out here with the dark horse. Glenn Vitale took it out bone stock to Sebring, and he was quite impressed with its performances. Then it was my turn to jump behind the wheel. Went out to SGMP to do some drag racing. Unfortunately, battled wheel hop. I wasn't overly impressed, neither were you all, but that's not what this car is built for. So the next logical step after we tried to stop the hop kit, pull it back off and send Jamie Bell out to the Autocross to see what this can do. We were running an F stock. It was bone stock. So let's check it out and see how Jamie Bell did. So we're here with Jamie Bell, a resident tech expert and autocross extraordinaire, right? So we had the dark horse out there. Tell us a little bit about your experience though, autocrossing cars.
I started autocrossing with the SCCA in 1996. So I've been doing it for a while, mostly just with Fords, a few British cars thrown in, a couple of Miatas, but we don't like to talk about those. Yep. But mostly Mustangs.
And given the fact that, right, Sebring, you could run lap times, compare them versus other cars, drag strip, right? All drag strips are 1,320 feet. But autocrosses, right, they're different every time, correct?
Course changes every event.
So what we're gonna do is try to lean on Jamie's expertise and his experience on the autocross course, because your personal autocross car is
2013 Boss 302.
Yeah, the Grabber Blue, right? Yep. And Jamie was a very integral part in the development of some of our suspension components and the MagneRide controller in both the Mach 1 and GT350, right?
Yep.
As well as our EcoBoost. In fact, you've wheeled the EcoBoost around the Firm, which is just south of us, holding one of the fastest lap times out there for a Mustang, right?
Currently, it's like the third fastest Mustang lap time out there.
Only bettered by what, a GT500 and GT350R?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so we got that out of the way. You know your way around an autocross, tight turns like the Firm and stuff like that. So since we can't compare lap times, what stood out to you the most about wheeling hopefully my future dark horse out there?
It was a very comfortable car to get used to what it was doing. It was pretty quick. It's pretty forgiving on making mistakes. It's not like a GT350 or a 350R where if you make a mistake, those cars are pretty much on the edge to get good times. It felt more like a Hanlon Pack Mach 1, except better.
Okay. Now, what did you like better about it?
It has more power than a Mach 1. It has more power than the 350s.
What do you mean by that, Jamie? How does the dark horse feel more powerful than the GT350 out there on the autocross course?
It's got more torque low and mid-range than that flat plane crank 5.2 has. So the power starts a lot lower and a more usable range at an autocross than a GT350 where you have to have a lot of RPM to make power.
Now that makes sense, right? Because usually in autocross, you're leaving the starting blocks, you're getting in a second pretty quick, right? And then you're leaving it in second and torquing and pulling your way through corners, correct?
Everything's about how well the car comes off the low speed corners and get the car up to speed as quick as possible. And the car does that really well. It has more power coming off of a corner than a GT350.
So that makes a lot of sense, especially since you're in second gear early, you're diving into that corner, you're losing some speed, some momentum. So the torque of that dark horse is going to pull you out of that corner a lot better.
Coming off the start, it puts power down really well. The tires that were on the car, it was hot enough Sunday that having cold tires wasn't an issue. I think the surface temperature was over 103, but the car had a good balance feel to it. The only thing that I didn't really like about it was the feel of the brakes. and it wasn't very consistent, but I'm not going to fault the car completely for that because of the other things we've done with it. This car's already been to Sebring.
Yeah.
And it's had a full track day at Sebring on the full course, so, you know, the pads could have been glazed. But other than that, that was my biggest single complaint about the car.
And obviously from a drag racer's perspective, I couldn't tell you if the pads were bad because we rarely use the brakes. Although I know when I was at the drag strip, one of the beauties of having a car with those kind of brakes was the ability to get on them and knock off that first turnoff so I didn't have to run all the way down the end of the track. But so how did you set the car up? What did you change? Did you run it in track mode? What are some things you did?
The first 3 runs that I made in the morning, I left it in regular mode, just like it is when you crank it up. And all I did was turn the traction control off.
Okay.
And then opened the exhaust. And I ran it like that, set the tire pressures to what we had learned to do with it at Sebring, and that's how I started. In the afternoon, I ran it in track mode. And with track mode, I didn't have to mess with the exhaust and I didn't have to mess with traction control because it does that for you.
Okay.
And the biggest thing that I noticed between the 2 modes is the throttle application felt a little laggy in track mode, but that's more of a product of it trying to keep traction maximized. And in an autocross, you're on and off the gas so much, especially on that particular course, till that's just to be expected.
I mean, I've noticed that in the cars. When you do go to track mode, you do lose some of that instant pedal feel, but it makes sense. Ripping it through turns, tight turns, jumping back on the gas pedal. Last thing you want to do is have to spin the tires.
No, the track mode is there to try to maximize what the car is capable of, and it's trying to maximize how much grip the car has. And with it being a manual transmission, it doesn't have the ability to upshift to keep you from breaking the rear tires loose. So it starts pulling throttle back to keep you from breaking the tires.
Gotcha. Now, you did go out there. What class did you run in the Dark Horse?
I ran it in F Street because the car was completely stock.
Completely stock. Now you do see some people out there in the cam classes, right? But you can't go in there with those stock tires.
Those tires were not legal to run in Cam C, so I kept it in F Street where they're legal for local, regional type events, but nothing divisional or national level. You'll get kicked out of the class for that, but at local stuff, they're perfectly fine.
Gotcha. Now what kind of competition did you have in your class out there?
There was a Camaro SS.
So you were able to beat the SS Camaro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you make any changes to the car while you were out there?
Yeah, the first 3 runs, I made it with the car just like it's been. And during lunch, I changed the front camber.
Oh.
I maxed it out to see what difference it was going to make. I'd already checked to see what the camber was stock and what it was going to with the camber plates. And we got about 0.8 of a degree more negative camber out of it.
Okay.
With the factory adjustable camber plates. And it got me to just under 2.5 degrees. It was like 2.3, 2.4 negative.
Okay.
Which was better than the stock settings of 1.5 degrees.
And your laps obviously went a little quicker then.
The car got more responsive.
Okay.
I really didn't have enough time to really, maximize what it could do, and it was really hot.
Now, for people that are curious, these handle impact cars do come with camber plates from the factory that you can add. Now, you said when you maxed it out, you got just under 2.5 degrees.
Got almost 2.5 degrees.
Now, if you were to add a set of, say, Steeda camber plates to the car, what kind of negative camber would you expect to see?
On that car, otherwise, it's going to be right around 3 degrees.
Okay. So while those camber plates are a great addition that you get with the performance pack cars, there still could be more to be had with some other different aftermarket components.
Depending on what you want to do, what you're looking to do with your car, changing camber plates is a good way to get more camber. If you're going to do track events, a lot more autocrossing, then having the negative camber is going to help your lap times and decrease your front tire wear.
But now if you're driving your Dark Horse all the time, or Mustang in general, you're not going to run 2.5, 3 degrees in the front, are you?
No.
You might, but the average consumer's not.
But the average consumer's not going to try to drive it on the street with that much camber because they're going to have tire wear associated with that kind of camber. But the factory plates do have a central position they go back to that doesn't allow them to go more positive.
Okay.
So you can put it back to the stock setting.
Okay.
A lot of the aftermarkets, including ours, don't do that, but we like to give you the complete range of motion for your adjustments.
Now, did you mess with tire pressure out there? That's one of the things that came up with us at the drag strip. Glenn had reported he really liked about 34 pounds, I think 33, 34 pounds at Sebring for good traction. I left it alone until the last pass. People were wondering why. Well, it's because of the really, really short sidewall on the tire. You know, I mean, usually if you've got a stock tire, yeah, you start at 28, you kind of play around 26, 28, but with that really short sidewall, I didn't feel confident at the drag strip going lower. But what did you do out there on the Autocross?
I started them at about 33, 34 pounds and watched where they went as they got hot and adjusted them from there. The car felt better with them hot around 34, 35 degrees. So I adjusted them to keep them in that range.
And the tires themselves, what did you think of those versus some of the other factory offerings that have come on these cars?
The best factory offering I've ever seen on a Mustang was the Laguna Seca Boss 302 that had the Pirellis that were 40 tread wear, and they were a true R-Comp race tire from the factory.
Okay.
Those were the best I've ever seen. Other than that, these feel a lot like the Cup 2s that come on the GT500 track pack cars, the Handling Pack Mach 1s, and the GT350Rs.
Those are the ones I've made comments before, like, there's no treads on this tire. Like, how is this a brand new car?
Yeah, they almost look like a slick. They compare very, very similar to those.
Okay. Do you know what kind of longevity these Trofeos have over those?
I don't know. The way we drive it, they're not going to last much longer.
No, especially if we go to the drag strip next Friday, they're definitely not going to last.
No, they have held up well to what we've done to them. Like I say, at the Autocross, once I cleaned them off, the grip on them was really good. So I was happy with the tire grip. Are they as good as some of the really good 200 tread wear track tires out there now? Probably not. But as far as the tires that come on a car, they're really good.
That's great. And it'd been a little bit of time since you had been out there on the Autocross, so it'd feel good to get back out there, place first in class, and drive a brand new dark horse, right?
Yeah, it was good to get back out there. It's been over a year since I've done any autocrossing. I would have liked for the weather to have been a little bit cooler.
Oh yeah, I think we all are thinking that right
100 plus degrees was, you know, kind of a shock to your system going out there to run. But I really liked the dark horse. It was a good, comfortable car. It was easy to, it's easy to drive. It's easy to understand what it's doing. Mm-hmm. And it didn't throw any real big curveballs at me. It did everything pretty well, and it let me know what it was doing. So I didn't have any big understeer issues or oversteer issues. Like I said, the brake pads were the only thing that were really inconsistent about the car, but I think that's more of a product of what we've done to it.
What Glenn's done to it.
We're not going to blame Glenn for everything, but
he's got to take some heat every now and then. So, you spent some time in the Dark Horse, you spent time in GT350s, Mach 1s, EcoBoosts. Dark Horse, it's your car, Jamie. What's the first thing you're going to do to it after tracking it this weekend?
Cut weight, cut out weight.
And you do that via?
I'd put a tubular subframe under the front, get rid of nose weight.
Okay.
Probably lightweight bumper bars, whatever I could find to cut weight out of it reasonably. I would probably want to go dual rates on it to get some more spring in the front, to slow down the roll rate in the front, camber plates to get more camber in the front, smaller rear bar.
So you might be asking, what is our next step with this car? Got done with the Autocross, we were at the drag strip, and we started out at Sebring Raceway. So, as you see, we installed that Stop the Hop kit, starter kit in the rear. We're gonna make sure that's back in the car, and we're taking the drag strip here in 2 weeks, right? A week from Friday. See if we can do any noticeable difference out there. If we're able to hook those Trofeo tires a little bit better out the drag strip, see if we can go a little quicker. And then what do we have lined up for the dark horse after that, Jamie?
Hopefully a supercharger, because we need a lot more power.
God.
I think the next thing we're gonna do is a set of dual rates, the MagneRide dual rates,
Okay.
and a set of bars, and take it back to Sebring and compare it to what it did stock with our dual rate springs.
Now that'll be good, right? You know, dual rates, no crazy coilovers, nothing exotic. Dual rates, front rear bar, it'd probably be the competition rear bar, right?
Comp bar in the back,
Front camber plates. And let's see what it does out there at Sebring.
That way we're still keeping the MagneRide system intact.
Yep.
And it's a more direct comparison than if we went coilovers, because we're still comparing with the same shock dampening and the same tires, and see what it does.
Cool. Then we're gonna be looking to add some horsepower to it with our friends from Cooks. After that, we'll just kind of see where it goes, but wrap it up. Give me one last thought on what you think of the dark horse after driving it this past weekend.
I like it better than I did the GT350s. Power-wise and an autocross, it feels very similar to the Track Pack Mach 1s. Grip-wise, I think it's got a little bit more traction than the Mach 1 does.
Well, that's great. You know, we always like to see that, right? Ford, they never take a step backwards. Every time they release something, another model, another nameplate, you know it's gonna be better. So clearly they've done their homework from the GT350, the Mach 1. They've put it all together in this package with the dark horse. Look great out there on the track, and glad to see us going through the paces, right? And testing every single aspect of this car. Now, we're gonna make some changes, add some Steeda parts to it, and see what the difference is, and tell you guys what the difference is. So hit like, subscribe, follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, follow us on our YouTube channel. And remember the most important thing at the end of the day, Steeda, where speed
Matters.